Today we're going to talk about bonding for under a tenner. You don't have to spend a lot of money to have an epic time. This is a very important lesson, and it's a big part of how to skip the date. You know, the idea of cheap dating, it seems like an oxymoron, but dating is all about impressing a girl by throwing cash at the situation. With bonding, it's not about how much you spend anymore. It's about demonstrating your intelligence in class and using your brain. That's your biggest advantage. If you spend a little time thinking, you can save yourself massive amounts of money that get wasted on dating. You know, a lot of people think it's all about the money, but is it really? In my experience and in my studies, there is zero correlation between how much money you spend with a woman and whether or not you get laid. I spent a year living in London, hanging out at the highest of high-end clubs. I'm talking about the clubs where the guys have a tab of anywhere from $25,000 to $100,000 in one night. I've seen guys buy women tens of thousands of dollars of overpriced alcohol to impress them and still go home alone. I one time was at one of these clubs hanging out with a guy who had 3 of his own personal oil tankers. That's real money. That's a level of money that I know in my life I'll never get to. I'll never have oil money. And most people won't. That's billionaire money. That's crazy, crazy money. And this guy couldn't get a woman to save his life, okay? Money didn't make a difference. The only person impressed by his oil tanker special iPhone app was me, where you could see where his oil tankers were at any given time. Thinking that you need to spend money, the more and more money you spend on a date, the less likely you are to have a success. A lot of girls, when you spend money before they sleep with you, think, oh, he's taking me out to dinner, he's giving me presents, buying me flowers, chocolates, jewelry, whatever. He's taking me out to nice restaurants, taking me out to nice movies, taking me out to see a 3D movie or the IMAX or all these things that are expensive without me sleeping with him. So why would I sleep with him and change the pattern? So you're training her to think, oh, I get expensive things when I don't sleep with him. So you're actually rewarding her for what I consider bad behavior or behavior you don't want. So you don't want to be caught in that cycle. The idea that spending more money on dates leads to more success is 100% flawed. And I'm going to show you some really powerful examples. It's important to know about bonding secrets. These are the 4 ingredients of having a blast and making a powerful connection. Logistics, conversation, intrigue, and adventure. Now, you don't have to have all 4 elements on every date. As long as you have 2 or 3, you're going to kill it. And that's why I want you to have some really powerful tools. Let's talk about logistics. Logistics is probably my favorite word. Napoleon Bonaparte used to say that amateurs talk about strategy and professionals talk about logistics. If you ever heard phrases like an army marches on its stomach, that's about logistics. Logistics was everything about World War II. I just read this amazing biography of Patton, the one that the whole movie was based on. It's a 700, almost 800-page book, and you find out that one of the reasons we didn't win World War II faster is because Patton didn't have enough gasoline for his tanks. That's logistics. So in your situation, logistics means how close are you to your house when you're on a date with her? Okay, logistics means if she has a kid, so she has to spend the night at her own house every night because she has a babysitter, that's a logistics issue. These are the types of things we have to deal with. So the main thing I want you to think of with a date, the key to a successful date is being as close to your house as possible. The farther you are away from your house, the less likely you are to have anything happen or to get her back to your house. Okay, if you take her on an amazing date that's like 2 hours away from your house in a hot air balloon and everything, after the date, she's just going to go home. It's much better to have a cheap date close to home than an expensive date far away. So always think about staying as close to your house as possible. The second most important tool is conversation. You want to be in situations where you guys can talk to each other. It doesn't matter if you're not great conversationalist or you're not super charming. You can just let her do all the talking. But think about dates where you're not allowed to do any talking, okay, or where conversation is broken. Expensive dates provide shitty conversation. You go to a really expensive French restaurant, you know, the ones where they got cloth napkins and they got a special tablecloth, like perfect starched white, looks like it could be used in an operating room. And what happens? Every time you try and talk to her, she's really far across the table, so it feels like a job interview because she's like 3 or 4 feet away. And every time you start to kind of have some good conversation, the waiter comes up and interrupts it. I've told you before I don't like waiters. This is why. They break the conversational flow. So we want places where you can have good conversation, and you can have good conversation in a lot of different places. But you go to a movie, guess what? You barely talk to each other. You talk before and after the movie, but most of her emotional input she receives from the movie screen rather than from you. That's why movies are bad dates. So think about simple things, like if you go to the park and you sit on a little blanket and just talk for 2 hours, or you just listen to her talk about her story. For a woman, that's a better date. That's a date more likely to end in sex, because rather than her measuring how much you spent, she measures how much you listen, and that's really important. The next thing is intrigue. You want to get a girl into the bedroom, you need to remember that mystery is sexy. Taking her places she doesn't know about, showing her things that she's never known before, kind of opening up her world and taking advantage of this. The more mystery you kind of bring into your dates or bring into your bonding sessions, bring in whenever you take a girl out of the house, that's what's really sexy. And the same thing for adventure. It's all about being fun and sexy. As soon as you remove away like the financial equation from dating, suddenly it's really fun to go out on dates or trips or bonding sessions, whatever word you want to use. It's so much better. So just remember logistics, conversation, intrigue, and adventure. And don't worry, I'm just beginning to break into these. I'm going to give you a lot more detail in a second. But let me take you through a couple of real example dates that I've used to have sex with many, many, many women. When I used to live in Guildford, England, which is in Surrey, and if you live in Guildford right now, you're probably going to steal my date because it was so powerful. It's about adventure, intrigue, and logistics. Now, what I did is a little bit of research about Guildford. I said, I want to have an awesome date, and I want my date to have good logistics. And in Guildford, the guy, Lewis Carroll, who wrote Alice in Wonderland, lived in Guildford for a while. He didn't write Alice in Wonderland while he lived in Guildford, but he lived there for about a year working on another book. And so in Guildford, there are 3 hidden statues that follow the story of Alice in Wonderland. And most people don't realize that, okay? If you live in this town, I can tell you exactly where the statues are. At the top, the statue people can never find. The most hidden one is the start of the story. Okay, this picture of Alice going through a giant piece of glass, and actually the statue is a little bit creepy because it's one of the darker parts of the sequel. And they have that statue up at the top of a hill, at the top of the high street, hidden in a park. Even when I had directions, it took me a while to find it. So I took a girl with me and said, I want to find this statue, let's find it together. And then we found the second statue halfway down the hill, and the third statue was actually, it shows the little version of Alice as a little 5-year-old girl chasing a rabbit as it's going towards the rabbit hole. And so you start off at the top of the hill, or the top of town, and you work your way down, and guess whose house was near the bottom of town? Mine. So we had like the secret statues, which was all about adventure and intrigue. We're going to find something. And I used to take girls who were born in this town. Even girls born in Guildford did not know there were 3 statues. They knew there were 1 or 2. They'd never seen the looking glass one is the one they'd never see. So I take them through, and they would have the most amazing, wonderful adventure. So we start at my house, and you could just as easily, okay, if you're a complete moron, you can do the exact same adventure in the opposite direction. Start at the statue closest to my house, and work your way to far away. And that's a great adventure. You're working your way uphill with the girl for the entire date instead of downhill, so you're getting more tired. And it's a great way to have the date end without you actually having sex. That's the alternative version. So the exact same date, the exact same 3 statues in the wrong order is bad logistics, unless you live at the top of the hill. If you live at the top of the hill, then do it in that direction. But I find that it's really great to start at the top because that's the hardest to find statue that builds up the intrigue and gets her into that treasure hunt feeling. And that's what kind of story you want. And another great thing is sometimes on my way to start the statue adventure, we'd go into one of the art galleries, you know, where the paintings are for sale. And we'd go and look at paintings for 5 or 10 minutes to kind of get us into a little bit of that mindset, a little bit of the looking at art, a little bit of the culture mindset, a little bit of an adventure mindset. And then we'd start doing the statues. I wouldn't always tell her that we're going to do a statue hunt. Usually I would say, hey, we're going on a date, dress cute, but make sure you wear sneakers, don't wear heels. That's all the information I would give her, and I would take her on this adventure. And it would end at my house doing what I love to do the most. So logistics are so important. It's really great to have a date that ends as close to your house as possible. And this one ended about 150 meters from my front door. It's hard to get closer when you're using, statues in parts of town that are real. So that's really effective. So basically, we'd be on foot for the whole date. And it's a 3 to 5 minute walk from the end of the date to my front door. And I always use, to get a girl into my house from the end of the date, I'd be like, we'd have a drink along the way, a bottle of water or something like that. And then by then you gotta pee. I'm like, hey, I need to pee. Let's use the bathroom. My house is right here. And that's usually a great way to end the date. I often use the I need to pee to get girls to my house. That's like my main simple way of doing it. So let's then look at my London bonding session. This was really built upon intrigue, conversation, and logistics. And as you can see, a similar ending. I'd start out at a high-energy bar. There's a bar near my house. I lived in London East End, and there's a bar in Brick Lane that had really great high energy. Okay, you had people from all over the world. For some reason, it's one of the biggest bars. I can't remember the name. I can remember exactly where it is, though. It's got like a red banner, and people would go to this bar, and from everywhere, it was called the Big Chill. There it is. I knew it was in my brain. From all over the world. You'd meet people that have just flown to England from Brazil. They still have their backpacks, and they went to this bar as their first stop while they're waiting for their friend to bring keys to their new apartment. You could get a really, really good cultural mix. So it has a great vibe and has a DJ with live music all the time. But also, you can get a glass of wine here, and if you sit down to talk to each other, it's not too loud to talk. That's the key to a high-energy bar. You want it to be something that creates an environment where you're talking to each other. So even though me and a girl are in a really crowded, kind of high-energy bar with lots of people, this is a pretty large bar, we could just sit down at a little table or sit down on a bench and create our own world. So she doesn't feel like she's alone, like it's just her and me. She doesn't have that feeling of solitude. She feels like she's in a crowd. This provides kind of a feeling of safety for a first date. This is a really great first date that ends in sex. Then we'd go from there to the trendy bar that I've talked about in my other lessons, right around the corner, about 200 meters away, or 200 yards if you're American like me. We'd find a bar called Exit. Unfortunately, this bar is gone. I went back to London last year working on a project that's coming out very soon, another book I'm working on, and it turned out my favorite bar, Exit's, gone, which is a shame, because this bar was really small, and they would always be doing super cool things. There's only room for like 50 people at most in this bar, and only seating like in these cool couches for like 10 or 15. They used to have like a DJ playing minimalist techno in the back corner, and then they would just play old Danger Mouse cartoons on a big screen, like a projector screen, not a big screen TV, and it was cool. These are the kind of things that are like, oh, that's so trendy and cool and hip, right? And this bar is really easy to have a quiet conversation. It's never super, I would never take it when it's super crowded. Like if you go at like 4 a.m., sometimes it's absolutely rammed, but you go on a date or on a bonding session at like 7 or 8 o'clock, it's not so bad. You go there, there's open seating, there's like 10 or 15 people there, and you can have a really quiet conversation. And I go in, and because I did my strategy to become a local in the bartender would make me 2 tequila sunrises, one for me and one for the girl, and I would just hold up 2 fingers. I wouldn't even say a word to the guy, and I know how much they cost because I go there all the time. So if you're counting, this date is more expensive than the last date. I've now bought 2 glasses of wine at the high energy bar and 2 tequila sunrises at the trendy bar. I've spent just around a tenner. Just around a tenner. Maybe it's like $10.50, and I apologize if it's gone over a tenner, but this date's so effective, okay? And then, so we have really great conversation. We've got some cool adventure because the first bar is so cultural. The second bar has intrigue because it's a bar that's really like a hole-in-the-wall bar that most girls never noticed. With a sign like Exit and kind of in the middle of nowhere, people would often miss it. She might have walked by it 100 times, but as soon as we go inside, she goes, wow, this bar is super cool. And that's intrigue, showing her something new, showing her inexperience. That's what's so cool. And then I'd say, hey, let's go to a third bar. And we'd walk, and the walk from the trendy bar to my house was about 10 minutes. And I'd say, oh, the next bar is down the street, but I need to use the bathroom. And once we're in my house, I close. And, we have an advanced training lesson on exactly how to close once you have a girl in your house. But this is the basic idea. High energy bar, trendy bar, my house. Logistics was the key. I always want to end up near my house, especially when you're in a city like New York or London where it's really foot heavy, where you're walking, or anywhere in Europe, Anywhere I've been in Europe, it's all walking. Like Prague was all walking. Same, even when I was in Sweden, in fact. So if you can really focus on being sure your date kind of ends in a loop back at your house, as much as possible, that's logistics. If you have an amazing date that ends like a 30-minute walk from your house, you're in trouble. That's a big challenge. You don't want to create that for yourself. And even in a town like Tampa, which doesn't seem like it would have much going on. In fact, I lived in St. Petersburg, which is south of Tampa, across from the bridge. It always felt like the same city to me because the only break is that there's like a bridge. And when you drive from one side of the 10-minute bridge to the other, you're still in a big city. But this was really based on logistics, conversation, and more logistics. There's a sushi bar near my house, a 30-minute walk from my house, if you were to make the mistake of walking. I meet a girl at the sushi bar for one drink. Sometimes you'd have sushi if it's not a first date or whatever. If it's not a, if we've kind of been spending time together and we already have an intimate relationship, maybe we'll have a full dinner there. Either way, there's a lot of options, okay? Because it's not super expensive. If you have a full dinner and you order like a lot of sushi, you're going to go over $10. But if you just have one drink each or two drinks, you kind of set the tone. You're somewhere cool and trendy she hasn't been before. Then right outside, half a block away, I don't know, people never notice this. There's a park, and on the big side of the park is all these boats. It's one of the most expensive places to dock your boats in Florida. In fact, the waiting list is years and years to put your boat in there. So there's all these yachts. And I would just take her for a walk to look at all these yachts. And when girls look at yachts, they get turned on. You don't have to own a yacht. You just have to show her one. And they kind of enjoy the walk. It's a little bit romantic. And then we would end up back at my place for a little bit of the sexy time. It's a lot of talking, a lot of logistics, and a little bit of intrigue. It's a simple date, not very complicated, and I probably slept with like 30 girls on this date. This is the date where I started getting worried because I took, like 7 or 9 girls in a row to the sushi bar in the course of like 10 days. So I started thinking maybe I'm going here too much. But no one ever said anything, which was good because I was kind of ready for it. After about 5 girls, I started getting nervous. I'm like, am I pushing this too hard? It's only been one day. I took a girl yesterday, and sometimes 2 girls in one day. So this is a really successful date. I can't remember the name of this sushi restaurant, so if you live in St. Pete, sorry, but I'm sure you can figure it out. It's downtown, near where all the cool bars are and near where all the action is. And the other good thing is that you're always in places where if you need to vary the date, or you kind of need to add on extra activities, you can't. The sushi bar is also downstairs of a really happening club on the 14th floor. So you can say, hey, let's go have, I'm going to talk about this in a minute, let's go have a drink upstairs. And you can go upstairs, 14 floors or something, or 28 floors. I can't remember. The name of the club is whatever floor it's on. And you can go outside and have a drink and kind of look over this amazing view. So you kind of have modifications available, and hey, it's right down the street from one of the cool museums I used to go on dates to as well. So those things are always good to think about with all of your dates. My Guildford date ended near a really cool pub, so if it wasn't quite ready to transition to my house, I could say, hey, let's have a drink in this pub. And again, you're really controlling costs. Okay, so we're having one drink together, and then you make the move. One of the things that's important to remember about good bonding is multiple locations is so powerful. If you take a girl to a 5-hour date to one restaurant, like a really expensive French restaurant, you spend like $400 or $500, and I've done that before, okay? You only create one memory. But if you take the same girl to a tenor bonding session and go to 3 different locations or 2 locations, she's going to remember and store twice as much or 3 times as much information. We store memories based on backgrounds. That's why even if you work with someone, if you never see them outside of work, they're a 2-dimensional character. You never really think of them as a real person. All the people that I've ever worked with that I never socialized with, I don't really remember them very much because I only saw them in one location. So even though you spend more time with the guy in the cubicle next to you than anyone else, they're not a solid memory until you see them in other locations. And that's how dating and bonding works. Bonding is about creating a connection. And just by seeing in multiple locations, you can create that connection. Your conversation skills don't have to be that high. You make up for them by using locations. So let's dig into the idea of adventure-based bonding. If you get her heart racing, you can go straight to the bedroom. One of the great places for this type of bonding is museums. A lot of museums have really cool after dark programs or other cool sexy events. People don't really pay attention, but museums are always desperate to make more money. For example, the Science Museum in London once a month has a museum after dark event where they sell wine and beer in the museum, and you can see all these exhibits that are special just for adults. No kids allowed in the Science Museum. And a drink there costs, for a drink for you and a girl, way less than a tenner. You each have a glass of wine, and they have cool things like a silent disco where you wear headphones and you can only hear music through your headphones. So you're still kind of doing the museum quiet thing. They'll show you experiments and all these different things. You can have an amazing adventure. There's museums in every city that are kind of like this. There's always different programs. I know not every city has the specific drinks and kind of, science museums where you can touch everything. So that's really cool, great London date. But you can still do lots of museums. Even in a Terabon museum, it's not always a best first date or best first bonding session. But it's really great for once you've kind of hooked up or connected once or twice. I took a girl for our second session after we've been intimate. After I'd taken her for the sushi session in Tampa, then I took her to a museum, and we would just go through the museum. I'm like, let's be bad. Let's make fun of these exhibits, and let's just kiss everywhere. So we'd go into all the different rooms and just make out. And I kind of set the tone of we're like a couple of bad kids breaking the rules. And so we'd look at this art, and I was like, you ever notice how art from more than 500 years ago is so bad? Because they always show you these art exhibits, and it's like a giraffe that looks like a piece of crap. It's never impressive. Like, people were incapable of drawing well until 500 years ago. So everything more than that. And I would just make fun of all the exhibits. And if you're, a history professor or something, you're probably pretty offended right now. And I'm sorry. But by having an irreverent connection where you're just not trying hard to impress her with your knowledge and showing off all the art in the museum, instead you're making fun of everything, it's way easier. The second thing that's really cool is animal sanctuaries and zoos. Girls love animals, and every town has amazing free or cheap places to see them. Now, as you live in a bigger and bigger city, you're going to have more cool museum events, like in New York, and it's harder to see animals. But if you live somewhere more rural or somewhere more small towny, you're going to have cooler and cooler animal sanctuaries. There's lion sanctuaries, elephant sanctuaries. In St. Pete alone, which is a small town, there's like 10 different sanctuaries. There's a crazy seabird sanctuary. And you go there, and most of them are free or they're for a donation. You leave them a buck or two, and they're more than grateful because you're helping to save animals anyways. So you're not even spending money on her. You're kind of putting money towards a good cause. And that's really a great thing. And it kind of gets people excited. Girls never get taken on good adventures. When people think date, and that's why the word is so shitty, they think movie, dinner, awkward conversation, annoying waiter, bad connection, spending a lot of money. They're all negative things. But if we switch to our bonding, we're just having fun. And we're doing things that are actually enjoyable even if you're by yourself. My idea for any bonding session is something that I would do with a guy and have a blast, like a buddy or by myself. The third thing that's really great for getting your adventure going is going to a lookout point or the tallest building. You get to look down on your city like gods. Most people never go up to the tallest building in the city they live in. That's why in my Tampa date, going up to that really high bar and looking down over the city was really cool. How many people who live in New York have actually been to the top of the Empire State Building? How many people in New York have been or in Chicago have been to the top of the Sears Tower? How many people in London have been to the top of the Pickle or the Gherkin, whatever you call that building that looks like an Easter egg? So people actually live in cities where there's really tall stuff, and they never go up there. And for most people, being high in the air is very romantic. For girls, it's very heady. It activates certain switches in their brain, and it's just really cool. And you can also just make it part of an adventure. You can go for a drink, go to the top of a building, go for another drink, and she's really like, wow, this guy's showing me things I've never seen before. It's exactly taking advantage of the fact that you're an older guy. That's the advantage of dating a younger woman. When you show her new things, it turns her on. You take an older woman on a lot of these dates, and you're just going to get a lot of complaining, and it's going to be the wrong vibe. But you take someone who has a sense of wonder, a sense of adventure, has that youthful energy, and everything you take, going on all these different bonding adventures, you're just going to have an amazing experience, and she's really going to get turned on and be excited by it. So the things that have been disadvantages for you for so long, all of those things are now advantages, because now you're the older, wiser, sexy father figure, older brother, however the girl kind of sees it. So let's look a little bit more about bonding intrigue. The idea of intrigue is like the entire mystery, the idea of the unknown. Women are way more into intrigue than men are. Think about women you know. Women are far more interested in tarot cards, in fortune telling, in crystal balls, in all those kind of things, astrology. Why? Because that's kind of interfacing with the unknown. 90% of the people that call astrologers are women. Men were not as interested in that part of the intrigue. Some guys are, and maybe you're one of those guys. I've definitely done a lot of research only because I knew how effective it was at meeting women. You know, learning to read palms can totally change your life because women love that stuff. It gives them the intrigue. So the first thing to really ratchet the intrigue is know your city. Every city has something amazing about it that makes it amazing and special. And most people don't pay attention. Every city I've lived in for more than 6 months, I found something secret and amazing. In Richmond, Virginia, one of the most amazing things about that city, and most people do not know about it. I didn't even grow up there. I went to college in Richmond. If you go to the big bridge, there's a big bridge in Richmond that goes over the entire river. There's a really wide river on its way to the ocean, okay? The river's like half a mile wide or something. And under this bridge between two pylons is a hidden rope swing with a ladder put inside the river. If you're on either side of the river or you're on the bridge, you cannot see the rope swing. It's completely hidden. If you don't know it's there, you don't know which pylon to go behind, it's not there. That's an awesome thing to do for a day, okay? Go to the secret rope bridge and go rope bridge swinging in the river. It's a blast. Absolute blast, okay? Secret things that other people don't know about or that other people never take the time to learn about it. What was my Alice in Wonderland date? I took a little research on my city. I said, what's cool about this city? You take any town and you Google what's great about it or what's interesting or secrets about this town, and you're going to find things, you know? There's so many things in London no one knows about. You can take a girl to all of the haunted bars or to the vampire bar. There's all these kind of things that people don't think about that if you just put in a little effort, this is why it's about using your brain. You don't have to spend money if you're willing to spend half an hour on Google. And you can just develop one really great date or bonding session, one really great strategy where you can bond with the girl and just do it over and over and over again. Just repeat. You can, once you have one great, you can do it. Historical and haunted bars are cool for 2 reasons. You know, historical bars are a chance for you to kind of demonstrate your knowledge and show her some cool things. You know, show her where someone famous had a drink or other things like that. And if it's haunted, it also activates her, you know, her wonder about the unknown, her mystery, a little bit of that fear. When girls get scared, they get turned on. That's why they like horror movies. You know, if she's really afraid of ghosts, and I've been with women who believe in ghosts, they're very afraid of that. They're more interested in the unknown, the occult, that part of the world. Well, when you take a girl to like a ghost bar and she thinks there's a real ghost, what's she going to do when she's scared? She's going to snuggle up to you and hug you. Okay? And again, you could take her on like a ghost bar adventure. Find 3 haunted bars and make sure the last one's really close to where you live. The next thing that's really good for intrigue is take her to the high school makeout point. If your girl is like 18, this isn't as good. But if she's 20 or older, she gets to relive like the wildness of high school, but with a real man, and do something amazing. And every city has one of these lookout points too. I was never really cool enough in high school. I can tell you the place in Nashville is called Love Circle. I finally went there after I graduated high school. I went when I was in college. And we took you got to bring a blanket because dicks break all their bottles up there. So there's always broken glass, but it's like a radio tower and you can look over the city and it's really romantic. And, you know, it's not, when you're an adult, it's not as scary, right? When you're a kid, the cops might come and roust you if they think you're having sex, you know, or they, like happened to one of my friends. And then you both end up in jail waiting for your parents to show up or something horrible like that. But for your adults, it's not as big a deal. You're not afraid of the police hassling you anymore. They're not going to stop you if you're 2 adults at a makeout point anymore. So it's really cool. And that's kind of one of those things that kind of does a little bit of intrigue, a little bit of adventure because you're doing something that's a little bit naughty, but now it's not against the rules anymore. And you're a little bit, this is a chance for her to do something she's closer to and you're farther away from. So you've spent so much time showing her stuff. Now she can show you. And you can even ask the girl, you know, what's the secret? Do you know when you were in high school, where would you go to make out with guys? What was the secret spot if you don't happen to know? I only know the one in Nashville because that's where I went to high school, but every town has it. If you think your town doesn't, you're wrong. It does. If you don't know, you might have to ask the police. They'll know. Now let's get physical. Physical bonding is a really, really great way to spend a day. Again, these are not all of these are great for a first bonding session. I'm trying to mix it up so that you can take a girl out more than one time or have fun with her more than once. Batting cages and golf range are a blast. I love doing both of these. You sweat a little. You don't have to be that great. It's super fun and relaxed, especially if you have like a good batting cage where they have different speeds. That can be great because not every girl can handle a super fast speed ball. It's super fun and it's relaxed. Golf range is great because there's no speed, there's no cost. Most golf ranges that I go to, they have a bunch of golf clubs in like a basket with the head sticking out, and you just pick one. Okay, and then you buy a bucket of balls for like $3, and you're good to go for like an hour or two. Also, one bucket of balls, if a person's not a serious golfer, they're going to be worn out. Okay, so you take her, she's having fun, she's doing something she doesn't get to do. Here's why it's cool. Number one, these are usually things only guys do with each other. So she's a little bit getting to see what it's like to be a guy or hang out with the guys. So you're showing her a level of respect she doesn't normally get. This is the stuff that a younger guy would exclude her from. I don't know why, because girls love this stuff, and it's a lot of fun. Number two, if she's not good, or you're not good, you guys get to do that stuff where you're like wrap your arms around each other and you're helping each other. When you're doing something that's like physical, think about how much when people play real sports, when they're out there playing soccer or football or baseball, they're all slapping each other's asses and touching each other. Sports are naturally lead to physical touch. So if you're one of those guys, especially that like you feel uncomfortable making the first move, it's so natural when you're doing sporty stuff like batting cages or golf range. You can also do like go-karts. Things like that are really good. Or if you're more adventurous, my favorite thing to do with the girl I'm seeing right now, my favorite thing is to go wakeboarding. And it's really a blast. We do a lot of adventure and physical style stuff together. We do a lot of two-person kayaking. We do a lot of surfing. We do a lot of stand-up paddleboarding. She's way better than me at that. That's one of the things. Some things I'm better at, some things she's better at, and that's what the mix is. I'm better with kayaking because I'm stronger. And right now she's better at wakeboarding and stand-up paddleboarding because she's so light. So you can have really cool physical and adventure dates that kind of mix it together. If you live in the kind of place where you can easily go snowboarding like Colorado or Austria or whatever, things like that can be really, really cool. If she's having a good time, physical stuff and can make up for conversation. You don't need conversation if you have really good physical stuff. Like snowboarding, you do almost no talking. But if you take her snowboarding, you're having so much fun, right? It makes up for that. That's why I kind of said we have our 4 elements, but you don't need all 4. You always want to think about logistics. Another great date, before I get ahead of myself when you're being physical, is the gun range. Now, lots of countries like Australia and England, there's no guns. I know that. This is mostly for America. In Nashville, where my family lives, girls just turn guns on. Guns turn girls on. That's crazy. You don't need to own one. I've never owned a gun, but you can go even in most countries, lots of different countries, you can just go and rent a gun. Now, you don't want to go and rent an AK-47 or an M16. You don't rent a machine gun or an assault rifle. That's the way to fuck up this idea. You want to rent something small that she can do. I usually do like a 22. If she's never shot a gun before, this is a chance for you to demonstrate a little bit of knowledge. Now, do not make your first trip ever in your life to the gun range a date. God, remember, don't take a girl to do something you haven't done before. Do the actual research. I recommend going and taking a gun safety class. I did one when I was a kid. And learned everything about a gun and go practice and do a couple of shoots. I actually think going to the range is a blast. That's like all the things that I think are great bonding sessions are things that I love to do either way. And girls get really excited. This is one of those things where it's a little bit forbidden, it's a little bit dangerous. You just have to be very fastidious. Be very careful about safety at the gun range. If you follow the rules, it's not really a big deal. Always aim the gun down range. You have to know how to unload and reload the stuff and all that stuff. As long as you're not a moron, guns are quite... and you don't accidentally point a loaded gun at someone like an asshole, then you're fine. But I recommend take a gun safety range class, maybe even take a conceal and carry course. You don't have to own a gun. I find no reason or desire to own one, but I love going to the range and shooting one because it's so interesting. I play a lot of video games, but it's so different. And I'm actually a really good shot. My friend was on a shooting team, and he told me I'd be terrible, and it turned out I was great. It turns out playing video games does translate into the gun range. So if you spend a little time in a gun safety course, okay, maybe that's $50. But once you've taken 10 girls to the gun range, you're good. Renting a gun for the day is anywhere from $10 to $20 for a gun and ammo. So it's not that expensive. Maybe it's a $10 each or something. But you go, you rent a gun, and you just have a blast, and you shoot targets for like an hour or two together. And the thing is, you can't really talk because it's so loud. It's minimal talking. She's just having a good time. And you're demonstrating that you're more mature, that you know how to keep her safe in a situation that's a little bit dangerous. The danger's not real unless you do something stupid, but she'll feel it because at the end of the day, guns are very dangerous. So by demonstrating her that you know how to be comfortable around guns, you know how to be safe around guns, that you know how to have fun, and you're not risking the I hate guns crowd because you don't own one, you're just renting. And you know what? If they don't have guns for rent, then you don't do it. But this is kind of the idea. The next thing is fishing. I did a great day bonding session with a girl where we went fishing, and I have this fishing pole my friends made me buy from Walmart for like $20 and like a crappy like children's tackle set. Okay, because I went with these guys on a camping and fishing trip one time, and of course the lake we went to had no fish in it. No one caught anything, and then it turned out we had the wrong licenses because we were in a different state. So you have to get a different like fishing permission slip in every different state, even if you're not going to keep the fish, right? So it was like a total like fiasco, I'd say. But I had this fishing rod out, and I took this girl that lived. This was a logistics problem. The girl lived like an hour away from me, and she didn't own a car, so I had to drive to her. This girl was super, super cute. So this is one of the few times in my life I drove to the girl. I was like, okay. I looked and I found a fishing spot near her. I was like, okay, I'll come to you because I want to go fishing at this one spot near you. Now, I don't know shit about fishing. Here was my plan. My plan was to pretend to fish while we have conversation, and then I kind of make my move at like 10 in the morning on a Monday or Tuesday. So we go there. I don't even know if I had bait, or maybe we bought bait. I can't remember that part exactly. Or I just had a lure that kind of looked cute. Like I let her pick it. She was a country girl, so I assumed she would know how to handle, like setting the line and fishing and stuff. My plan was to not catch a fish. And we're fishing at this lake that was really like a big pool. And it's between all these people's houses. You're not supposed to be fishing there. There's like a sign, don't fish here. So of course we're fishing there. There's no one around. It's early in the morning. I assume the lake is empty. We caught a goddamn fish. It was so big. We catch this giant fish. The hook's right through its face. And it turns out she's not a country girl. She might be from the country, but she doesn't have that like deal with wilderness mindset. Neither of us was comfortable trying to take the hook out of the fish's face. I'm so upset. I'm like, I wasn't trying to really catch a fish. Okay? So it's really important when you take a girl fishing, don't kill the fish. Unless she says, hey, if you kill it, I'll cook it and clean it, and we'll eat it, Unless she says that, throw the fish back no matter what. This is a really good like day bonding session because you're doing something wild and adventurous together, especially if you both are not good at fishing. This is just like a really cool another idea that you can mix it up with, and you just throw the fish back. In our situation, we couldn't get the hook out of the fish's face. He kept fighting us, and we didn't really know how to do it. And I was afraid like he's gonna flop. It was a big fish. I don't know. Like almost as I wish I could tell you, but everyone's fish stories, the fish gets bigger and bigger. I have a picture of the fish somewhere. I took a picture of it with me and this girl. But anyways, so we cut the wire because, I do know that the hook will eventually fall out of the fish's face after a few days. The fish's mouths are really good at breaking down hooks. So, and it was cool because the girl had like a lip piercing too. She's like, wow, the fish looks just like me. So we throw the fish back. We'll push him back into the water. And that was kind of the end of our bonding session. It was really cool. So we kind of had good conversation, a little bit of adventure and surprise, and we just kind of experienced something together. So these are 9 really different, powerful bonding ideas. You only need one. And then this is what I do now with most girls for a first date. This is where I skip the date. My most advanced technique. You got to really be just comfortable saying what you want. And this is how to get sexual bonding without leaving your house. I invite a girl on a date and we never go anywhere. So I really don't like to take her out until after we've had sex. I'm kind of past the point in my life where I'm willing to dance like a monkey for food. I want the sex first. So I don't want to invest resources in someone that isn't into me. So a lot of these bonding sessions are things I'll take girls on after we've been intimate, so there's no more kind of that wondering. That's why I love bonding, because once you sleep together on the first encounter, the first bonding session at your house, the bullshit's out of the way. And then I don't mind taking a girl out and spending a little bit more money doing something that I already want to do. I never take a girl out to do something I don't want to do. That's not something I'd ever do. So for me, all bonding, it starts off with, I want to do this. It would be cool. And now it's backwards for most people. Most people think, hey, you got to spend 1 month or 3 months kind of wooing a girl before you get sex. But that's how I do it. That's me. And it's all about getting her to meet you at your house before the date. Usually I say, hey, drive your car to my house, so that way at the end of our date you can easily get home. It's kind of saying, it's providing her a level of security, saying, hey, no matter what, you can get home. Especially because I make the girls come to me from all these sites, whatever. I want them to come to my house. If she has a car, and if she doesn't have a car, obviously this becomes more challenging. But I say, hey, meet me at the house before a date. And she comes in, I say, let me show you around. Let me give you the tour, the 5-cent tour or whatever. and I break out a drink and we crack into a bottle of champagne. Now, opening a bottle of champagne is very exciting because it explodes and shoots the cork everywhere and you dent your ceiling. And you can actually, one of the things I recommend is if you look online, there's a really cool technique where you can get the cork to shoot at the bottle of wine by sliding a knife along the bottle. Just look it up. Just look up cool ways to open a bottle of champagne or whatever. Now, a bottle of champagne is like $6.99, and it's going to taste okay. As far as I can tell, everything between $7 and $100 tastes pretty much the same when it comes to champagne. And, you crack it open and one drinks into two. She's like, wow, this is so classy. Because, younger guys never break out the champagne. No one takes the time to go to the liquor store and see what stuff costs. Okay? And once you've had a couple of drinks, it's so easy to go for the kiss. You have 2 or 3 drinks, so you go, oh, now we've had too much to drink, I can't drive. And you go for the kiss, and then you just take her into the bedroom. Yeah, this is a little bit more advanced. It does require a little bit more confidence, but you can totally fake it. Okay? The first time I tried this, I was just like, let's just see if this works. I have no idea what's going to happen. I'm going to pretend I'm confident doing this. And it just worked. Because we had a lot of conversation, the logistics couldn't be better. Once a girl's got a couple of glasses of wine into her, she feels comfortable with you, she's seen you have a nice place, you've given her champagne, so she's a little bit loose, you're a little bit loose, you're both more comfortable, everything just kind of falls together. So this is like the most advanced level of skipping the date. This is really when you get to where you want to be. This is like the best. And even then, even sometimes, I take the girl, we have a couple of glasses of champagne, then we have sex for an hour or two, and then I take her to the sushi restaurant. Or then I take her out, She's now earned it. Or maybe that's not the right word. But now that I know that she likes me, we're past the games playing phase, I'm ready to go out and have a blast with her and start real bonding at the next level. So this is how you skip the date. This is the most advanced level, and it's awesome. So this is really how you could do bonding for a tenner. Now you've got 10 amazing ideas for ways to meet and take her out, and you don't have to spend a lot of money to have an epic time.